Welcome to War Thunder with Subdued. How y'all doing today? Well, you've seen part one, which was the United States of American air power, which is what I have in my wish list for 2.01. Now, I don't have a lot for Germany. I have nothing for the USSR because I just really don't know which way they're going to go there. But for Great Britain, I've got a few minor additions that I would like to see. Let's take a look real quick. Back here in rank 1, I would love to see the Bolton Paul Defiant. Everybody's been asking for the Defiant. Well, not everybody, but plenty of people. It's an oddball plane. It's a two-man fighter with a turret. It's a turret fighter. Not the fastest. Looks a little bit like the Hurricane, but not exactly. And contrary to what some people think, it wasn't mistaken for the Hurricane by the Germans. They knew what they were dealing with. But it's an interesting plane, and I would really like to see it in the game. That said, that's pretty much it, other than maybe instead of the Hurricane Mark II-B trope, which good plane, don't get me wrong, I would like to see the Hurricane Mark II-C. Now you're probably going, what the heck is the Mark II-C? Mark II-C is pretty much the same as the C Hurricane Mark I-C for 20 millimeter cannons. The difference is it does not have the arrestor gear. It is not as heavy as the Mark I-C. Not the C Hurricane. It will be a standard Hurricane. So if we can get that, that would be wonderful. And that pretty much it at the low tiers, unless you want to go into some of the bombers that are missing from the British lineup. Well, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of bombers, oddballs that the British had that really weren't that good, and they were used in the phony war, where what they were dropping were leaflets rather than bombs. They would be interesting. Now, before we get into the heavies, after or before the Halifax, I would actually go before the Halifax. We're missing the Manchester. Now, you might be wondering, what's the Manchester? The Manchester was the plane that preceded the Lancaster. The Manchester had two Rolls-Royce Vulture engines, which were difficult at best. They had a tendency to burst into flame. But because there were only two engines, it definitely was a subpar performer as far as being a bomber. But it was there, and it would be a better performer than the Wellington. Just basically think of it as a Lancaster with shorter wings and only two engines and not as long. And you basically have a Manchester. Only make the engines about twice the size of the Rolls-Royce engines, the Merlins. The Mosquito, we need another Mosquito. We need the bomber variant of the Mosquito. We have the fighter bomber and the naval attack fighter. It was the one with the 57 millimeter cannon, which is absolutely useless as far as I'm concerned. It's got 430 cals, or 303s, or 7.7s, whatever you want to call them. But that 57 millimeter gun is what I consider about useless. Never have liked the big guns. Even though there are some people that like to fly around with their ME-262 with a 50 millimeter, and I have no idea how they fly those things and donk people. But they do. And then let's get down towards the end. Now, we've gotten the Scimitar, we've got the Phantom FG Mark 1, we've got the Lightning F6, we've got the Phantom FGR2, we've got Hunters, Javelins, yada yada yada. All wonderful, all good. Bomber. These two bombers are what I would consider useless. They do not carry a good bomb load for what they are. In my opinion, we need the Blackburn Buccaneer. And the Blackburn Buccaneer would outshine the Canberras by miles and miles and miles. The underwing pylons can carry 4,000 pounds of bombs. That's one 1,000 pound bomb per pylon. The rotating bomb bay can carry another 12,000 pounds of ordnance, which brings it to a total of 16,000 pounds, or roughly about 7,000 kilograms. Yeah, think that one through for a minute. That's carrying more weight than the Lincoln or the Lancaster or the Sterling on a sleek, high-speed bomber. It could also carry air-to-ground missiles on its external pylons. It could carry anti-shipping missiles on its external pylons. It could carry 2 air-to-air sidewinders for self-defense. Yeah, we need the Blackburn Buccaneer. We need it now. Because Britain is basically screwed. It does not have the bomber capability on the Phantom. Yeah, it can carry a bunch of 1,000 pound bombs and no missiles. Or it can carry 4 1,000 pound bombs and some missiles. It's not as good as it should be. The Lightning, it has little. It has a choice between 2 different types of air-to-air missiles. Phantom FG, again, same basic loadout as the FGR 2. Scimitar can carry a limited amount of secondary ordnance. Lots of rockets, or rockets and bombs, or 4 bombs, or 4 bullpups. So it's a little bit more flexible than the 2 Phantoms. But were we to go with the Blackburn Buccaneer, the weapons loadout would be Wow. And it had targeting for those weapons. And not only could it carry dumb iron bombs, it could carry GPS guided bombs, it could carry laser guided bombs, it could carry CBUs, cluster bomb units, and yes, Gaijin, we need the cluster bombs. Oh, can you see by the dawn's early light that cluster bomb opening over a Russian position, just liberally scattering bomblets everywhere, destroying everything with a top-down attack that just blows through the top of the turret and the top of the engine deck and kills all those tanks without ever having to worry, because the plane came in at absolutely zero level and just dropped them and killed everything in about a football field of area. Yeah. I want cluster bombs. And yeah, the Americans get cluster bombs too. Anything that can drop 96 to 258 bombs. And they're not big, they're just like 4 pounds, each one of them. And they would just wreck face to an enemy ground unit. And while we're at it, we do need the snake eye bombs. But again, we'll get into ordnance later. But surface to air missiles are a thing now. So we need some method of fighting back with our high-speed jets in ground forces. I don't play ground forces, so it really doesn't affect me. But surface-to-air missiles have got to start coming into air realistic too, for airfield defense, because using World War II AAA is not good when you've got planes coming in at Mach speed. By the time they open up, the plane's gone. And if it's coming in at Mach speed, carrying a bomb load, drops below Mach long enough to drop all of its bombs, and then hits the afterburner and goes back into Mach, it's gone. It suffered no damage, and it just wiped out an airfield. Or at least put a nice pattern right down the runway. So, that's one plane that I would like to see at top tier. The Blackburn Buccaneer would be absolutely perfect at top tier. Another one is the Panavia Tornado. Now, this one's kind of difficult because I don't know whether Gaijin has the capability in the engine to handle a variable geometry wing. Basically, swing wing. If they can, well, that opens up a lot of different options, including the F-14 Tomcat, but we'll get into that later. But the Panavia Tornado is a swing wing aircraft capable of Mach 2.2, and it is a fighter bomber, mostly in the attacker vein. Now, I don't know how we're going to place that. I would say under the Swifts in the Tier 6 area. It could carry a metric butt-ton of weapons. And there's another version of it, the Panavia Tornado, ADV, Air Defense Variant, which is basically a fighter. It was designed to be the fighter. It has air-to-air radar, search, blah, 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 blah. Whereas the original Panavia Tornado was a ground attacker, or an attacker. And that pretty much says what I would like to see for the British lineup. A couple of new ones down low and a couple of new ones up high. Bolton Paul Defiant, the Manchester, the Blackburn Buccaneer, and the Panavia Tornado. Two variants of the Tornado, if you will. One a fighter bomber. Oh, one of the differences between the two, the fighter only has a single 23 millimeter gun, or 27 millimeter gun. And the fighter bomber has two 27 millimeter guns. But it doesn't have air-to-air targeting, so it becomes a little bit more difficult to handle in an air-to-air combat situation. It's sort of like trying to fly the Skyhawk in air-to-air combat. It's not designed for it. It can hum the tune, but it really shouldn't do it. Alright, this Subdude signing out. Y'all have a pleasant today, a better tomorrow, and we'll catch you in the sky in air realistic on the good maps. Take care, folks.